welcome back to Rainbow Table. My name is Deb Pearce, and I'll be your host today like I am every week, except for last week when I did a little video saying I won't be doing a video today, which is last week. And I'm really grateful that you're here. We have had a great time doing this series. We are not done. Today is going to be essentially our last show where we interview people. Today's topic is policy, legal justice, advocacy, allies, people doing great work in the communities. Next week is going to be kind of a lot of fun, and it's going to be sort of silly. So we want to give you a whole week to prepare for this because we're doing Chosen Family Feud and we're doing trivia. So if you want to join us next Friday, don't worry about doing anything except for enjoying today's show live or again, but we will be, there it is. We will be having some special guests doing our Rainbow Table Game Show Edition show. And we will be doing trivia with prizes. And we'll be doing Chosen Family Feud with prizes. And if you're not available for whatever reason next week, we do want you to actually fill out a survey, which we also want to reward the one lucky person for doing our survey. We're going to put it up on the Rainbow Table and the EGAL websites and the Facebook groups. If you take the survey on the Facebook group, you can you have a chance to win some awesome prizes on next week's final episode. So lots of things to give away. Not that we feel like we need to buy your love, because we feel your devotion. We want to hear from you. You can start live commenting right now. And next week's going to be really fun, really silly, and potentially some Canadian icons in the entertainment world will be joining us for Chosen Family Feud. So if you think you know LGBTQI2S, 2IS, LGBTQI2S, if you think you know your community as well as I think I know our community, you might just be the winner of next week's trivia contest. Okay, so today, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. Does it look like I'm in exactly the same set? Because this couch is in a totally different home, but here I am trying to show you some consistency here at Rainbow Table. All right, so we've got 3 guests today, and our final guest is actually going to also be doing some performance poetry, which I'm stoked about, and that'll be by Rabbit Richards. We also have Levi A coming up, but right now, it's a small world after all. I won't tell you until I actually get Todd Ross on video here. I'm not gonna spoil it, but we used to work together a million lifetimes ago. So I'll give you some background on Todd, and you'll see why Todd's a perfect person to speak to today about policy and legal justice. So Todd is a Métis and lives in St. Andrews, New Brunswick. That must be new to me. I haven't stalked you on Facebook lately. I didn't know you moved from Toronto. He is a consultant and has served as a senior advisor to the Deputy Premier of Ontario, as well as the President of the Métis Nation of Canada. Now, Todd is also one of the representative plaintiffs of the LGBT Purge class action lawsuit. So, if you didn't know, Canada has a really sordid history of what can be termed as sort of state-sponsored homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. And for decades, there actually was a policy aimed at oppressing and consequently criminalizing same-sex conduct through heteronormalization. So that is called, there's an umbrella term for the class action lawsuit called the Purge. We're going to talk to Todd Ross now about all of that. Todd, welcome to Rainbow Table.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. We look exactly the same as we did when we worked together on Church Street, don't you think?
We have not changed at all. People say that all the time too.
It's a nice thing. I had no idea when I was like, I don't even know. I don't even think I was a server. I think I was there so often at Pints that they just threw an apron in my general direction. I started bussing tables. But so we worked there together. I had no idea, you know, when you work with somebody and you see that aspect of them and they're working hard and they're super diligent, I kind of thought that that was your life, that was my life, and you've gone on to do amazing, wonderful, great things. And I don't think that you and I ever had a long enough, serious enough conversation to talk about your history within Canada and how your rights, how your job was sort of taken away from you. So today, all kidding aside, almost, let's talk about what happened to you when you were after you joined when you were 18. Tell people your story. It's fascinating.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm back in New Brunswick. I actually grew up in New Brunswick in St. Stephen, which is the next town over from St. Andrews. And when I was 18, I signed up to join the Canadian Armed Forces. I had been in Army cadets at that point and for about 6 years and had excelled at that. So joining the military was just a natural next step for me. I signed up. The Navy was my second choice. You go through this process. You pick which types of jobs that you're interested in. So Navy was my second choice. And when I received the phone call asking me to join, it was actually about 2 weeks after I'd finished the recruiting process. And I was just ecstatic. I thought I was going to have to wait a couple of years before I got the opportunity to serve. So I entered the Navy. I went to basic training in Cornwallis, Nova Scotia. Then I did my trades training. I was a naval combat information operator, which means I watched the radar you see in the photo there, and some other duties that were required. And I served on the HMCS Saskatchewan on the West Coast. I served for a total of 2.5 years, and a year and a half of that, so 18 months of my time in service, I was under investigation by the Special Investigation Unit of the Military Police. So about after a year I had been in, I was posted to the ship already. I had been called up to the ship, to the quartermaster's area, and told to go with two gentlemen who were driving a light blue K car, wearing cheap blazers. And that was probably a hint there that I was gay. But
you're commenting on their apparel.
Yeah,
I love it. Gives it a real sense of timeliness that you referred to a K car, by the way.
Yes. So that would have been just the beginning of 1989. So January of '89. And I got hauled away and put into a room, and I was questioned for several hours. And this was not the last time it would happen. It would go on for 18 months. I was deeply in the closet. I knew I was gay, but I had not admitted to myself that I was gay. I had not been able to come out. And I also knew that it was a career-limiting move to come out. So I went through this.
What were they? Why did they ask you then? If you weren't out, did they suspect? Were you seen smooching a sailor in slow motion with one leg up on the dock after you? I mean, that's the visual I get. But.
Yeah. Going back, I wish that was the case.
Yeah.
But no, it was just they suspected that I might be gay. I had not engaged in anything, but it was a government policy that started in the 1950s, around the same time as the search for communists in the United States. And because Canada has a pact with called the Five Eyes with the United States, UK, New Zealand, and Australia, Canada entered into the same policies as the US in searching originally for communists, and then it sort of merged into homosexuals, and it continued on until the early 1990s. And it was in June of 1990 that I was kicked out. I was offered, after the whole investigation, I eventually came out to them, did a polygraph examination. I did 6 in total, where I admitted on the polygraph that I was gay. And then they gave me an option. They said, we can either take away your security clearance and you can remain for the next 6 months doing basically sweeping streets, or we will give you an honorable discharge and you can leave right away. So I jumped at the opportunity for the honorable discharge.
After 6 years of service, is that right? Did you say 6
years?
Was
just under 3 years, so about 2.5
under 3 years.
Yeah, I had been in the Army cadets prior to that for 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it harkens to, like, it feels like a black and white movie moment for me, where you're kind of strapped up to the lie detector and you where were you the night of, you know, the Woody's Halloween party, you know, whatever it is. What type of questions do they ask? I mean, they're going to come off as being incredibly homophobic, because I suspect that that was the vein of which the questionings were. But was it like affiliations, associations? Were they trying to find out sort of where the community was? Do you remember the line of questioning, and if it's not too triggering for you?
Yeah, and well, originally when I had to think about it for the class action lawsuit, it was severely triggering. I'd basically blocked it for almost 30 years, and when I started kind of going through the details, it was horrendous. The result was this is my affidavit that went to the court. This was kind of the result of bringing forward the memories, and there's a lot of legal language in there as well. But going back to the questioning, it started out with questions like, have you ever gone to the Soviet Union at the time? Have you ever betrayed your country? Have you ever sold secrets? And then they went into, I remember the first time, the questions were very security related. The first time I went in for my polygraph exam, they go through the questions in advance of the polygraph exam, and you can only answer yes or no. So you're hooked up to the machine, you've got the wires across your chest, you've got wires on your fingers, and you have to sit in a straight back chair. You're not allowed to move. And one of the questions on the polygraph was, are you gay? And I was horrified, and I was like, oh my God, I have to answer this on a polygraph, lie detector. So I ended up, I think because I was so nervous, the results came back inconclusive. Which resulted in more polygraphs. When I did come out to them and admit that, yes, I'm gay, then they wanted details. They wanted to know what types of activities I had engaged in, with who I had engaged in the activities. And they go in and talking with other people, because I'm not the only one who went through this. There are hundreds and probably thousands of people who went through this in the decades that it happened. They were kind of, they really wanted the details. And it's sort of question, why did you want that much detail?
Yes, and we're just going to let that sentiment just sit right here, because I think we know what we're all thinking.
Right, but very intrusive questioning, and then asking who else was involved. In my case, there wasn't anyone else, but talking with friends who went through similar experiences, and particularly in some of the communities, and particularly with women, the experience was there were networks, and often people would be caught in kind of this network trap where several people would be pulled in for questioning because somebody had given their name. A great friend of mine, Diane Pitt, who I've gotten to know very well since, and who was also kicked out of the military. She tells some great stories about how she made up a bunch of names when she was asked, and I think even used Mickey Mouse, and but people would you get into this defensive mode where you're not going to rat out somebody, but the questioning was very intrusive, and they were trying to use every opportunity to find other people.
Yeah. What a terrible, I just have to say, I'm so sorry that you had to endure that. I mean, we'll talk about what you're doing today consequently, because we all are products of our experiences, right? So it's very interesting, because it's not triggering for me, but you're bringing me back to 1999, 2000, where I was dating a first lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force. And, we would go to gay bars in Des Moines, Iowa or whatever, but there really was like this small, close-knit group of people that knew that she was queer. And then there were people that knew she was, that kind of didn't really want the association with it because they didn't want to be questioned themselves. It's so wild. I of course can't wrap my head around anything but love and puppies and unicorns. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. But there you are coming out the other end of it. And now you're the president of the Charlotte. Well, we'll talk about that in a second because I heard that you were kind of hoodwinked into that.
Yeah.
So you serve on the board of the LGBT Purge Fund and the Rainbow Veterans of Canada, Rainbow Veterans Canada, and you are now the president of the Charlotte County Pride in Southwest New Brunswick. So let's talk first a little bit about being on the board of the LGBT Purge Fund. What are you guys currently doing right now? Is there things that are still in litigation? Have things been resolved? I hesitate to use that word.
Yeah. So we had great progress, and with the class action lawsuit, it was one of the quickest class action lawsuits in history. Normally, these things drag out, and you're in the courts for a tremendously long period. We started in June of 2016 with our class action, and we had the court ratification in June of 2018. So 2 years, and we had full agreement with the federal government. That was due in large part because the federal government was fully cooperating with us. With the Prime Minister's apology that happened in November of 2017, there was a direction to the Justice Department to work with us, and the government never put up any obstacles towards the class action lawsuit, or very few obstacles. There might have been a couple tiny ones. But they worked with us very closely to achieve a result. Part of that, it ended up being the largest class action lawsuit for LGBT rights in the world, with a $145 million settlement. Part of that settlement included a $15 million to $25 million fund to establish the LGBT Purge Fund. With any class action in Canada, if it's a right-based class action, if a person has passed away, my understanding is they're not entitled to receive their estate is not entitled to receive a benefit. So we negotiated with the government, and through some brilliant lawyers like Douglas Elliott and Cambridge LLP and others, we negotiated to have a fund established for the memory of those people who had passed away. And there's a lot of them because this started in the 50s. So in that LGBT Purge Fund, we're doing a number of things. There's a monument that is being built in Ottawa. And that monument we wanted not just for former civil servants of the military, of the Government of Canada or RCMP. That monument is going to be for all 2S LGBTQ people. We've been working on the consultation part to get that right. Then we're also working to do a museum piece. We have been working with the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. That has been put on pause. When we found out about some of the allegations in Winnipeg, and a report came out yesterday, that we hit the brakes on our dealings with the museum and have said until we are satisfied with what the museum's doing, we're going to hold on any further work with the Human Rights Museum. What is expected to happen, and whether it be the museum in Winnipeg or somewhere else, is it will be a monument, or it will be a museum piece that will talk about the history of the Purge within this federal civil service, but also a traveling exhibit that will be able to go to small communities like in Stevensville, Newfoundland, or in Port Alberni. So it will be a traveling exhibit that will help to educate. We also had the Pride Citation, which I've received mine here, and it's hold it up a little bit closer.
Yes, thank you.
We designed this with the Canadian Heraldic Authority. And it is issued by the Government of Canada. There it is in a much clearer. So that is a medal that the Government of Canada has issued to survivors, or we say thrivers of the Purge.
That's great.
Yeah, and for those who are still serving, who went through the long bar is to be worn on the uniform and worn with pride, and other things like documentation of the records. So we want the government has agreed to give us all of the records from cabinet documents where they discuss the purge, and digging in, so the RCMP records. It won't include individual records like my file, but one of the things we negotiated is that there will be a notation on my file saying that I was part of the purge, and that will stay on my historic record. And there was also an apology. So those are the things that were negotiated with.
Really good work.
Thank you. And the Purge Fund is managing those pieces, like the museum piece, the monument, the records piece. And so we have a small board of directors that are working toward that. We will be, we expect to be wrapped up by 2025 at this point. And part of the negotiation is once we've completed everything, we shut it down. The other board that I'm working on, because I know you're going to ask me this next.
Yes, and that's how we're going to wrap up, because it feels comparatively, it feels so light, and even though working on the boards for prides can potentially not be light, but let's talk about how this came to be.
So the other board that I want to mention, I'll quickly mention too, is Rainbow Veterans Canada, which we've just formed, and we are LGBTQ2 veterans who are Canadian, and we formed kind of our groups. We're working on support things and showing up at Remembrance Day to lay wreaths for 2 LGBTQ veterans, those types of things. And then the fun one that I've joined is the Charlotte County Pride, which is this little corner of Southwest New Brunswick. There's a few municipalities. There's a few islands like Campobello Island, Grand Manan Island, Deer Island, and we are this year we've had a virtual Pride, but we are doing prides throughout the communities in Charlotte County to really kind of show that we're here, we're queer. But also to work with the gay straight alliances in the schools, and to help that next generation show that they are loved.
Todd Ross, you are loved, and what you have done, and the way you've kept your head high, even when times were difficult and people wanted you to feel badly about yourself and the way you were born. I'm glad you persevered. I'm glad that you are somebody that I can call a friend that I've known for a really long time. LGBTpurgefund.com to get more information. Todd Ross, I wish you nothing but the best. I didn't know that you'd moved from Toronto to the Maritimes, but you're still very much here. And please keep us posted here at A Gal and Rainbow Table. We're hoping to continue this series, so we'd be interested in following as this concludes and see what happens with your decision around the museum for them to get it right. Keep doing what you're doing, and I just think it's great to see your little face. Thank you so much.
Great. It was great chatting with you again, and we'll see you hopefully when things open up. Yeah,
thanks. Stay safe, Todd. Thank you very much.
Bye.
That's fantastic. If you're just joining us, Deb Pearce with Rainbow Table. That was Todd Ross, a Métis living in St. Andrews, New Brunswick now. I met him when he was in Toronto, and we worked together at the same pub, which is now, I think, O'Grady's. And then it was, before that, it was Wild Oscars. Before that, it was Pints. Pardeep says, thanks for sharing. Stephen says, congrats and love to you, Todd Ross. Thank you very much. So today we're talking about policy, legal justice, just people that are generally trying to make a difference in our vast and varied community. So our second of 3 guests today is going to be Levi Foy. Now, Levi is a member of the Couchiching First Nation, who was raised primarily in the Treaty 2 region, or what is currently known as southwestern Manitoba. Levi is doing something pretty cool, and I can't see my note that I wrote it down, but I texted it to one of my producers, Wes. So without further ado, let's bring in our second course, if you will, here at the Rainbow Table, Levi Foy.
Oh, hi.
Hello, Levi. How are you?
I'm fine. I enjoyed your comment about the light. And so this isn't my home. I'm not at my house. And I was like, well, it's probably just the light reflecting off my forehead. So then while
you're just a ray of sunshine, I think is what it is. I think what's happening is that you're emanating light and also sucking it in.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. We'll go with that.
About half an hour, 40 minutes ago, I saw you speaking with Wes and Jonathan, and I wanted to say thank you very much for waiting in the green room. So we're going to talk about a few things today. Now, I don't know, it's hilarious because you'll see how organized I am. Okay, these are all the notes about you and everybody on the show today. So let's talk about what you've been doing. You say you've been nomadic, but you've actually been calling Winnipeg your home for about 6 years. Wes is texting me right now. Hold on a second. Right. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the work that you do as the executive director of Sunshine House. See, that's what it is. You are emanating sunshine. It's happening. It's on your shirt. It's coming out your face. It's lovely.
Oh yeah, it is too, eh? That's great.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so I've been the executive director at Sunshine House, which is a community drop-in and resource center I started filling in March of last year. So I've been doing it for a little bit over a year now. We have a number of different programs, but primarily, so we work primarily with folks who are street involved or have experience with houselessness, or people who are just kind of looking for a place to find home. So we don't do a lot of like casework or case support per se as other social service agencies do, because so what it is we just open our doors and people just come in and they just kind of decide what they want to do, and then our job is just to facilitate that. So I had been the program coordinator for Like That, which is a 2S LGBTQ plus drop-in center. I started that in 2014. I
want to talk about how you got the name, because I find that pretty interesting. Like That.
Sure.
Can you tell the viewers why that name came to be?
Yep. So when I first got involved with Sunshine House, we were doing a mapping project, and so this mapping project was that's how I was hired in early 2014, and we were to go to every neighborhood in Winnipeg, and we were to find out where people were buying and selling sex, where people were buying and selling drugs, and where men were having sex with men. And this was just to help shape policy as well as outreach programs for the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority, and then, of course, for academic studies. And so in that process, myself and JP, who was also working on the project with me, with us, and then Margaret Ormond, who was the executive director, we recognized that there was a big gap in the people who identified as queer, or who may or may not identify as queer, but were engaging in these types of activities, that didn't have a place to go that wasn't a bar or that wasn't a clinic. So people really, adults in particular, didn't really have a community space at that time where they could go and not feel any kind of stigma, because maybe they were sex workers, maybe they were engaged in drug use, and because they were often racialized, and primarily Indigenous. So we got together with other folks in Winnipeg, including the executive director at the time of the Rainbow Resource Center, and queer people of color of Winnipeg, and other folks within schools, and blah, blah, blah. And we created this thing, and we were like, okay, well, we're just going to start this little drop-in program and see what happens. And as we were trying to come up with the name, I noticed from my own experience and working with homeless populations, and then my own experience back home, is that lots of times people involved in marginalized communities wouldn't specifically come out in the same way that other people who have social safety nets can come out. So they wouldn't say I'm gay, or they wouldn't say like, or I'm a lesbian, or I'm queer, or I'm bisexual. They would just say, I'm like that. Or other people would say, so-and-so is just like that. So-and-so down the road and her roommate are like that, was a thing we often heard. And so that was just one of the things that somebody had suggested it, and then we were like, let's go with that. That sounds cool.
I love that. I love that you sort of reclaimed that, because I'm not sure if there's a negative connotation to that, or just an inference of the unspokenness of sexuality and gender. But I love that you sort of reclaimed like that. I love that story. I thank you for sharing that part.
Yeah, it's a really and then also just using kind of nondescript terms really helped us form a really open kind of space. And so
Yeah.
that space can transform as members of like that come and go. And we just,
Yeah, I love that.
it's a really fluid concept.
Yeah, there's no, it's non everything really. It's like all the folks are included in like that. I love that, like that. I love it.
Thank you.
And so as the exec director of Sunshine House, so that's one of the hats that you wear. And one of the things you wear is a wig, or maybe it's your actual beautiful natural hair, because
No, it's wigs.
I also want, it's what?
It's wigs because of the hairline.
Okay, all right. I want to highlight something that I don't think you knew that I was going to talk about, because a lot of the stuff that we do, there is levity to what we do, but I also wanted to pay an homage to your hard work with Sunshine House. But I also want to say that you were recognized as one of CBC Manitoba's top 40 under 40 in 2018. Aha! And featured on the first series of Canada is a Drag, and you've won numerous awards for activism and contributions. Look at you, stunner. And so your drag name is?
I go by Prairie Sky. Yeah, and that's my
Prairie Sky.
Yeah, so my community, my First Nation community, is located in Ontario and at the border of what is now Ontario and Minnesota. And so when I moved back to Canada and I was living there, I needed queer spaces to go. So me and friends would often rotate between Minneapolis, which was 5.5 hours away or 6 hours away, depending how much of a rush you were in, and Winnipeg, which was 5 hours away. And so we would just do that. And then I started seeing somebody while I was just kind of perfecting the type of drag that I do now. And I was driving by myself, and you come out of the bushes and you hit the prairies, and it's just like, and it's just immediate, and it's just like vast, and it's like this big, giant, beautiful space that's never the same. And I was like, that's my name. That's what I'm gonna go by. That's gonna be this drag persona's name is Prairie Sky. So
Prairie Sky. I love it. And are you still, that was only a few years ago, you're still performing?
Oh yeah. I still do it all the time. I'm currently the reigning Miss Club 200, which is one of the local gay bars. I think it's one of the oldest gay bars in Canada. It's existed at 195 Gary for about 30 plus years. Same owners, and it's First Nations run, and it's great. It's a great place.
I have to say that the address is 195, but it's Club 200. That can be a little confusing. I don't know why. There's one in Oshawa called Club 717. Why do we name them? There was a London one named Club something too.
I think
we're going to have a gay bar, and it's going to be at 717 such and such street. What should we call it? Club 717. I don't
Club
know.
200 is called Club 200 because of the capacity is only 200.
Aha!
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss bars. Don't you miss bars during COVID? I really miss that. I really miss hugging my friends and having a beer with friends and allies in the community.
I must say, like, because Manitoba was positioned quite well in comparison to the rest of the country, and we didn't experience the outbreak in the same way,
right?
At the offset, that we were able to reopen safely in various different ways. And so I've done a couple of gigs at the bar. They are completely different. Like, there's no dancing, there's no bar service. You're a lot more monitored than you typically are in a queer space, but I really appreciate I think it's really important I think because it's a queer space, they understand what mass community loss can look like. And so Club 200 has been really, really good at ensuring our safety when we're in that space, because they know what happens when people get sick and then you just never see them again. From people's experience with the AIDS epidemic and the HIV epidemic.
That's right. Yeah, we are better equipped to respond to this type of situation as well. Sad but true. Levi Foy, keep up the great work as executive director of Sunshine House. You are delightful, and It was really nice chatting with you today. And if I ever find myself in your neck of the woods, I will have money to tip you, because we're going to be able to touch each other again. at bars, and you, me, Prairie, Sky, we're all going to have a night. If I ever get out that way, I'll look you up. Thank you very much.
Please do. Yeah, it's nice chatting with you all. Thank you.
Nice chatting. Thanks very much. Oh, fantastic. All right. What a love. I do really miss that. During COVID, and that's kind of what inspired Rainbow Table, was like you guys were going to be in isolation at home, so we wanted to bring some information and education and some levity and performance to you. And I think I have to say that I feel like we've done a great job at doing that. We want to hear from you again, though. There is a survey that we want to hear from, and we want to hear some feedback, because this is our second last show. And if you want this to continue, which I do, we'd love to hear from you. So, and we're open to other show ideas as well. All right, so we are on to our third course, who will also double as our dessert, because they're going to be interviewed, and then they're going to be doing a performance poetry. So Rabbit Richards is learning how to exist on stolen land in a marginalized body, relentlessly compassionate with fierce integrity. Our final guest for today's show, in and around policy and legal justice, is performance poet Rabbit Richards. Hello and welcome to Rainbow Table.
Hi.
Why can't I say rabbit? What is wrong with me? I don't even know what's going on with my lip. Words are hard, okay?
It's a real name either.
You what?
Facebook doesn't believe it's a real name either.
Well, Facebook's silly. I believe it. I believe it. So thank you very much for being with us. This time last week, you were getting ready for a pretty cool performance with the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra. It says, I've been doing my research on you, Rabbit. So what was that like? It was your Pride in Vancouver. So Vancouver Pride and the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra did a symphonic Pride.
Mm-hmm.
So Rabbit, what was your play in that? What was your role in that?
This is close to my heart. It's a good place to start. So I, a couple of years ago, wrote a poem. I was inspired by Nina Simone's song, Mississippi Goddamn. Yeah. And I wrote a poem that was based on it and also reflective of current events at the time. And when I was approached by folks who said, would you like to work with actual stringed instruments, I couldn't think of anything I wanted to work with more. And I was just like, well, let me update this poem and let's go. And it turned out that the producer as well as the conductor both were excited about the same sort of art as me. And so we made a really good team in producing that.
That's amazing. And so it was virtual, but you were you in the space with them, or did you just?
Yes.
Okay, you were. That's amazing.
We were, as artists in a limited COVID safe way, we were able to all be in that same room. We were in a large theater setting with appropriate distancing. But yeah, it was a lot to hear the poem that I wrote over the chords that she wrote over it was a big moment for me. And I got to which is a nerd.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
And so is there a recording of this that we can listen to or buy or be part of?
Yes, it was live streamed last week, but is available by YouTube link. And I would suggest, if you want to try to find it, to go to Vancouver Pride's website.
Okay. And it was called Symphonic Pride. So you can look for Rabbit Richards. You can look for the Symphonic Pride. That sort of feels like a dream come true, but it also feels like you manifested that. So there's a whole bunch of really awesome things. You're very powerful.
Kind of the story of my life.
That's great. That's great. I'm kind of learning to do that myself, for myself. So it's empowering, and it's amazing it's great when a plan comes together, isn't it?
Right.
So we're talking today about justice and policy. And then we want to talk to brilliant artists like yourself who are affecting change and bringing about awareness and talking about the things that people don't necessarily always want to talk about. And you do it to performance poetry or performance. Would you call yourself a performance poet? What do I refer to you as? Is that right?
Conversationally, I mostly just say poet. But I find when I'm sending documents anywhere, it helps to say performance poet, because I think people still have a bit of an image of poets as only being people who well, I mean, I'm obviously still wearing the grandma sweater and drinking the tea, but like also where I get on stage, and I feel like that's something that needs to be, like, people need to know that, otherwise they don't know what they're getting into.
So maybe a poet is sitting in a window in France somewhere, and a performance poet is like walking up in Blundstones to open mic night and grabbing a Shure 55 and
It's
speaking their
something
truth,
like
I
that.
guess.
I think a lot of us blend the roles and go back and forth between them depending on where our inspiration is at the time. But I also think that there's maybe folks don't recognize what a difference it is to compose poetry for the page as it is to compose it for the stage. That there are actually two traditions there that are being sort of meshed, I guess.
Right. And hence the beat poet, because there is that rhythm to it, right? There is that rhythm to the cadence of being able to speak as opposed to reading it on a page.
Fantastic history in dub poetry as well is something to look up.
I love dub poetry. Okay, all right. So I'm already a big fan. And I found all these amazing videos. And if you want to learn about them, Rabbit Richards, there is no shortage of you doing some videos. I did the images, I did the videos, but I didn't listen to any of it because I, like the viewer here of Rainbow Table, I want to see you perform for the first time just here like this. Do you need to do anything to prepare? Do you need to do anything?
No, I try to do that before I'm on camera.
Okay, born to perform. All right, this is you were our third course, and you are our dessert because we have finished every single show by having some sort of performance. So you are going to be closing off what is going to be our last interview series for Rainbow Table before next week we do our trivia and chosen family
next one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, right?
Fun.
I know, I'm so buttoned up during these interviews. I don't know what I'm going to do for the next one, but I'm excited to see what I come up with. All right, without further ado, Rabbit Richards is going to do some performance poetry for us here on Rainbow Table. I'm going to excuse myself into the background here.
Thanks. So I've prepared a couple of pieces for you. I write fairly short pieces, and so I've prepared a couple. This first one that I'd like to read for you is something that it's taken me a really long time to get to writing. Learning how to make room for yourself, how to love yourself is something that we talk about a lot, especially in queer spaces. But it's not as easy as just saying so. And so that's why I've written this. If you'll let me, I could hold you soft till the shaking stops. I know it gets so dark sometimes you aren't sure your eyes are open, but even when your heart is made of coconut husk, I would cook for you. If you'll let me, I'm learning how to give you what you need. Beginning to understand that what you want is usually just your body suggesting a need is about to emerge. I know the outside of your mind is too many sizes, and the inside is always the wrong color. But even when you are too dehydrated to cry, I will not mischaracterize your relationship with the infinite. I will keep your unflattering photos safe from the floods. And now we have come to the forgiving place, unwilling, incapacitated, tears glimmering in the sun like armor, carrying our wounds aloft, but I will wait for you. If you'll let me, I will take you away from this withdrawing, clean even the embarrassing wounds. The silence need not be always. Your heart need not be pristine. I know you think you'll never be the same. I would like to celebrate the fact that you will never be the same. But I will wait till you'll let me. That piece took a long time to come to fruition. Another one that I'd like to share for you is about the concept of starving artists. They keep saying I have the music in me, the art in me. But they never warned me how they were going to get it back out of me again. how they would scrape us like hides for poems about rape and abortion, then look down their noses as we repossess our emotion. They romanticized the notion of the starving artist, a mistake you could never make if you've ever actually starved. It isn't romantic at all. They were always planning to monetize us. But first, they have to demonize us, ostracize us, criticize us, then dress up in our skin in grinning disguise as we stare forlorn into the crevices of wallets and couch cushions and other people's car ashtrays. They tell us how brave we are to survive our own lives while watching the countdown flash in our tired eyes. But our gift shouldn't be left inside us when we die. No, we're supposed to gut ourselves while we're still alive. They keep telling me the music in me, the art in me, is never meant to be kept just for me. I would also like to share with you something that has quite a bit of humor in it, to be honest, but I really mean it from a very heartfelt and soft place. It's called In Praise of Soft Men. Some men know how to hold a frog, how to catch an egg, what it means when I use she pronouns for myself, what it smells like before it snows. Some men can wear a utilikilt and not look like a douche. They notice before they step down on cats' tails and smile with their eyes. Some men have voices that land on my coccyx and bounce. Some men have little interest in depth, but know how to float. Many of these men are bearded, bushy survivalists who dress like the brawny paper towel man. But many of them only pass as men when the shadows and the neighborhood are kind. These men are kind, soft, in praise of soft men who breathe deeply and think before they yell. Thank you for discretion and soft shoulders, and for knowing how to make eye contact without issuing a challenge, for movie dates and long conversations and the room to have emotions on the outside of my body when stimming and overstimulating get confused, for late nights by the seawall, gifts of time and touch. Thank you for learning how to hold broken shards in your fingers, and for being, just for being soft men.
Thank you very much.
So welcome. It's exciting to get to share them with you and with your audience as well.
That was amazing. I feel like in this time of COVID, we're missing this sound. Are you ready for it? Thank you so much. I thought you were going to do 2. I'm so glad you did 3. And I love your delivery. I love what you say. I love that the way you were born with a certain voice. I mean that on a number of different levels, but the way, the tonation of your voice, it is, I want to hear more and I want to learn, and I believe everything that you're saying, and I'm totally engaged and I'm grateful. So thank you very much. What's that?
I said I got to use what I got.
Yeah, listen, if I get it. I'm trying to do the same. You have some feedback here. Pardeep says, wow, incredible, powerful words. Thank you, Rabbit. We have Miguel chiming in saying words that flow like true magic. Thank you, Rabbit, for your wonderful poetry. Larry is thanking us in general for Rainbow Table and all the interviews that we do. So thank you very much. People can find you, I trust. Stephen is now saying, you lifted my day.
My pleasure.
With great power comes great responsibility, and you seem to be using it wisely. Thank you very much. We will find you on email. There was your social media, or your Instagram, I think, was there. Thank you very much for joining us today. Keep up the great work and stay safe.
Thank you, yourself as well.
Thanks, Rabbit. That's great. All right, that concludes today's regularly scheduled program here Fridays at 3 p.m. Last week was a long weekend, so we took the week off. There may have been some confusion with that, so I will be putting it all over Facebook, Rainbow Table Egal, that we are here next week. Dennis, you haven't missed any live shows yet. You're still here. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching every week. We've been doing this since June, and it was sort of inspired by people having to stay home, so COVID-related, sort of a little more computer time, a little more on-screen time. So I think we've done a great job here at Rainbow Table. I'm not going to wrap up by thanking all of our guests and all of our viewers yet, but we do have something very special. So mark your calendar. Next Friday, which is going to be August the 14th at 3 p.m., we are going to start the show by me saying, hello, and welcome to Rainbow Table. Then Jonathan has put together a video of some of our guests, some of the highlight reels, some of that. And we're calling it the buffet because it's just a little bit of everything. And then, of course, some of our guests and interviewees, we asked to say, there's always a seat for you at the Rainbow Table. So we're going to start the show with that. You might make the cut if you submitted a video. And then we're going to get into the Chosen Family Feud, and we're going to do trivia through Kahoot, KAHOOT.IT. It's not very difficult, but I will say you've got a week to figure out if you want to do this with friends or you want to do it alone. If you're watching me on a laptop or a computer, that's perfect. So you can watch the way you always watch, but then you're going to be able to download at Kahoot.it, and you can be putting in your trivia answers in immediately. We've got tons of prizes for you, so please tell your friends. We'll be talking about it as well and sending direct links to be able to do that. We also have a survey up at the Rainbow Table Facebook page. We'd love you to take the survey, and it'll be up there probably before this show is. So thank you very much again, Deb Pearce here as your host with the most. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that you joined us either live or watching us afterwards when you get home from work. Thank you very much for joining today. We'll see you next week. And don't forget, there's always a seat for you at the Rainbow Table. Take care.